The Poetry Center bringing poetry to Paterson since 1980 at Passaic County Community College.
I'm very pleased to welcome you all here today. I always love this program because it seems to me that all the people who are predicting that poetry is dying have to come to this program to see that poetry is not dying, that it's alive and well in Paterson, New Jersey, and that all these different voices come together to sing an incredible song. And we're so lucky to be here to hear it. I'm going to start by asking the first prize winner, Dante Stefano from Binghamton, New York, and he's going to read for about 10 minutes. He's the first prize winner, and his poem, Sometimes I Think I'll Never Leave the Triple Cities, won the award. Dante is a high school English teacher in Endicott, New York, and a PhD candidate in creative writing at Binghamton University. His poetry has appeared recently, or is forthcoming, in the Holland's Critic, Quarter After 8, Nimrod, Italian Americana, and the Turin Review, among others. Let's welcome Dante Di Stefano.
Thank you. Hi, how are you? I'm very happy to be here today, and I just want to say a couple things before I read 3 poems for you. And Allen Ginsberg is a poet whose work held out the twin diamonds of poetry and charity and bid me to write when I first read him at age 18. So it's an honor to receive an award that carries his name. I thank the Poetry Center and Maria Mazziotti-Gillen, whose work has inspired me for years. And I'd also like to thank my fellow poets, and what better thing is there than to spend a couple of hours on a Saturday reading poetry. So I look forward to hearing all of your work. And I also like to thank my brother Damon, who's here, my longest and best supporter in my poetic endeavors. My friends Nat and Catherine Bowman and Tom Bowman, who've always supported me and who traveled a long way to be here today. And lastly, my future wife, Christina, the most beautiful Italian girl in the world. So I'm going to read 3 poems for you. The first one is called The Orchard Keeper. My father wanted to be an apple orchard. To this end, he spent 30 years tortured by the hum of letter sorting machines which shuffled neither rain, nor sleet, nor snow, nor hail, until his face assumed the sheen of a red delicious whose sorrow the worm only knows. The second poem is Sometimes I Think I'll Never Leave the Triple Cities. The Triple Cities are Johnson City, Endicott, and Binghamton, where I grew up and live right now. And I took the idea for this poem from the poet by Cesar Vallejo called Black Stone Lying on White Stone. Great poem, and that's a poem where he talks about dying in Paris on a Thursday. And so I was thinking about that and how most of us aren't going to die in Paris. We die in places like Binghamton or Paterson. So, all right. So this is the poem. Sometimes I think I'll never leave the Triple Cities. I imagine I'll die at 65 on a Tuesday at 2 in the afternoon, teaching a bunch of rowdy 9th grade angels Shakespeare's Sonnet 130, having traveled no farther than Johnson City, New York for years. I imagine I'll die on a Tuesday in Endicott, New York, on a rainy day in October, just after the leaves have turned. I imagine I'll die wondering where all the shops have gone from my childhood. The Triple City School of Beauty Culture, where my grandmother used to get her hair done, after shopping for dangly earrings at Boscov's department store, has been turned into a bookshop. And when I die on a Tuesday in Endicott, New York, 32 years from now, no one will remember the beauticians in training with their purple smocks who smoke cigarettes in front of the parole office on their breaks. When I die at 2 in the afternoon, no one will remember the beauty school sign and how it used to seem the center of hills breaking into autumn. No one will remember how my grandmother smiled with her platinum blonde perm and thinning hair, how after years of a jet black beehive, she used to say that she decided to look like Marilyn Monroe from my grandfather. When I die on a Tuesday in the dirty city of Endicott, New York, no one will remember that the Palermos and the Stefanos came there to work in the EJ shoe factory. The 9th graders I teach will never know how beatific my grandmother looked with her gaudy earrings, a fresh perm, and a shopping bag under her arm as she coasted along the broken sidewalks of Court Street. I imagine I'll die on a rainy Tuesday in my October classroom at 65 at 2 in the afternoon in Endicott, New York, in love with the poetry in the petals of those future students' faces. And with my last breath, I will tell them, and with my last breath, I will tell them, and with my last breath, I will tell them, this place, these ghosts, those people that I love are nothing like the sun. And this last one has a couple of profanities in it, so I apologize if that offends anyone. cover the baby's ears.
She's going to hear it.
Okay. Praying to Aries after listening to my father's voice message. Most times when my father calls me, I don't pick up. I let his call go to voicemail and don't listen for days. When I do listen, I hold the phone away from my ear and strain to hear cancer-reduced snatches of breath from the dying man I have been elegizing for the past year. I am a fisherman putting my ear to the slick skin of a beached whale off the coast of an anarchic, imaginary Nineveh, hoping to catch the echo of prophecy that bounces against the rib cage, jostled in the spume and sputum of old myth. I've always wondered what would have happened to Jonah if that Leviathan never cast him back up and he was left to sermonize inside a rotting carcass washed up on a bleak shore. I can see him expounding to God, on God, to plankton and kelp in the dark, his voice a drained whisper rising toward a heaven it can never reach. No angel could save him then. Today, I listened to a recording of my father's voice on the phone, and I wondered what saint might intercede for him. Last week, Kateri Tekakwitha, Lily of the Mohawks, first Native American saint, was canonized, and tens of thousands journeyed to the Vatican to venerate her. They say she engaged in ritual mortification, flogging, cutting, fasting, sleeping on a bed of thorns, burning herself with coals. When she died, her face changed and she became unbearably beautiful. They say, perfect. My father keeps a holy card of Kateri in his copy of the Bible. I want to say to him that his bookmark for the sacred is the patroness of self-hate. I want to pick up the phone just once when he calls and tell him that I've been imagining the way his face will change when he dies. that I've spent too many days trying not to listen to him, and that his God always sends something cancerous, homely, and carved from the depths to swallow us and drag us to a place of true clairvoyance. Only I've never been gulped down by the divine and regurgitated on a visionary coast, impelled by deep necessity to proselytize to the crashing tides and to convert the scuttling crabs. I want to tell him that scrimshaw and ambergris shaped me, that the saints have failed us, that the old prophets never came ashore, but drowned in their own rhetoric, that I wish I could become an ancient Greek praying to Ares, crushing aphids and grasshoppers between my palms to propitiate the only God of fathers and sons. Angels, death is the wind disguising your wings. I want to pick up the phone and read my father an elegy in advance, to tell him that there will be no eulogy for him, only murmured words. The wind shifts past me. Ares, I regret I did not argue with him enough. Tell him to fuck off enough. Angels, I am ashamed for not picking up the phone. Just once I want to call him and let the dark mumble a holy word forth, something about forgiveness or love or bullshit. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Our second prize winner is Donna Spector from Warwick, New York. Before I introduce her, I do want to say that at the end, when all the poets who are winners come up so we can take a group picture for the arts news and for the newspaper. Donna Spector is from Warwick, New York. She's a playwright, poet, and fiction writer. Her play Golden Ladder was published in Women Playwrights, the Best Plays of 2002. Winner of the Masters Poetry Prize, she received 2 NEH grants to study in Greece and was nominated 3 times for the Pushcart Poetry Prize. Let's welcome Donna Spector.
Thank you, Maria. You know, right after Allen Ginsberg died, my former students, my poets at Vernon Township High School dedicated our literary magazine, the Back Porch Review, to Ginsberg. So, the second prize, I'll begin with the second prize poem. These are drugstore glasses. I lost my real glasses in New York on Thursday. Day of the Dead, Secrets. Be careful what you say. She'll write about it. My mother. 1. When my young aunt went crazy that night in Venezuela, they lured her into the plane by running backwards, holding her purse. Give it back, she cried, chasing it down dark streets past men, leering like skeletons dancing out of her closet. In the Fresno sanitarium, she clutched that purse like the child she could never have or the husband we could never mention. Why is Auntie crying? I whispered. She's sick, my mother said. She was sick all her life. Headaches, pains in her legs, back, neck, and, of course, her heart. In her last years, she married an oxygen tank, breathing her solitary secrets. My uncle, who hated her and niggers, chinks, Jews, and filthy rich folks, stole her money after she died, locked the door to her apartment so my mother couldn't take a single ashtray, cup, or photo rope of fake pearls. No one mourned my uncle when he died of lung cancer or entered his rooms black with smoke and ill will. His table piled with gambling debts that drove wife and children away. While out in the Tropical apartment courtyard, a golden Buddha guarded a gated pool. 2. Did my grandmother know her husband rode buses around Pasadena looking for redheads? Their bedroom in our house reeked of Vicks Vapo Rub and Christian radio. Grandma made pots of fudge, howled hymns to keep the devil away. He's a school teacher, Mother said, not mentioning his 9th grade education, all he needed back then in Kentucky. Mother remade her mother, dyed her hair, painted her fingernails, bought fancy dresses, shoes that squeezed her feet. But she couldn't remake that backwards Kentucky accent. Dying on her hospital bed, Grandma opened her eyes and said, "Get on your horse and get me out of here." 3. Eldest of 9 children, Mother redesigned them all. Claimed they came from a grand Louisville plantation, their fortune lost in the war. I imagine Confederate dollars swirling over wastelands of heroic dead, but never the truth, until I saw their old run-down farmhouse, its rickety porch, broken piano, paint peeling sadly from splintered walls. My father said he was born on a kitchen table in Chicago, not Kiev. His birth certificate conveniently lost, so we also never knew his age. Was his grandfather a wine cellar or a rabbi before the Tsar began eating the Jews? Because a story is a secret, does that make it true? And then a couple of others. This is from my book called The Woman Who Married Herself. My father's breakfast. After his first heart attack, my father gave up bacon, butter, cream, and cheese. Mornings he ate dry toast, black coffee, and a boiled egg, because eggs he knew were good for the heart. I'd watch him slice the egg dead center with his steak knife, hold the 2 halves carefully while orange life spilled into his bowl. He cleaned the white meat from the shell like a surgeon who knows each gesture counts. He performed this ritual alone, his eyes alert and bargaining. Each day he shrank. The egg grew larger in his delicate hands until he was nearly hidden behind the opaque world whose secrets he would devour. "It's just an egg," I said, in case the egg wouldn't keep him here. But he smiled such sorrow at me, his only child, that I began to understand the fragile mystery of skin like a shell, holding, hiding blood, thoughts, laughter, and 1,000 terrors, unborn children. Break us and love pours out, or tiny prayers with their fingers crossed, or hunger when our only father has finally disappeared. And this is called Revision. When I was preparing to die at Mount Sinai, the old wing, held together by silver tape so thick I couldn't see Central Park. In L.A., my mother raged down Rosemead Boulevard in bedroom slippers, her bleached hair coiling and spitting like Medusa blinding the smoggy heavens. My New Park Avenue shoes, lambskin heels with a rose on the toes, lurked in the closet, waiting for my death. Or my life, tottering into a world without drugs or pain, while my mother headed for the mountains, cursing, ready to kill whatever crossed her path. I, who always assumed she could not love, had to revision my mother. Not the glamour queen who sprayed, painted, rearranged her daughter, dragging her from books to the Hollywood sign, telling her to laugh and cry on cue like the star she never would be. No, I needed to remember the mother who called when New York was snowing to say, "Be careful," who worried about my son, told me to wash new stockings, wear no underpants to bed, and don't marry the wrong man again. This was the woman who was my child at the end, who listened to my songs, played with my curls, said, "Oh, hell," when she couldn't move her legs, and then, "I'm glad you came back." And there's one more. One last one. This is called Au Bon Pain. This is the little cafe in Port Authority. The girl behind the counter comes from Africa. The woman, pointing to a raisin scone she has no word for, comes from the Orient. And I, watching the black girl refuse to comprehend the Asian woman, come from people who fear each other, who have silenced me now when I should speak, should say scone, or remember she too is human. Once in the Gare de Lyon, my friend Elaine asked which train to take. The information woman shrugged, said she knew no English. "I curse you," Elaine said. "Someday you will be lost in a country where you do not know their language and no one will help you." And I am all these women, the helpless and the one who will not help. My words wound around my throat, veiled pleas to be heard, understood, and curses so flinty they cut my flesh. We want bread, yes, and the word for bread in any world. Then someone to tell us the way home.